Yep, yep. Back at the barn. The old red barn. And we're going to take the trail backwards today. Oh, hang on a second. Let me lock the car door. Left the car out front of the house. So, some of you guys were here the other day. You went for a walk with me in this park. Oh, this was like 3 or 4 days ago, but today we're going to go the opposite direction. Hey, John Ho is here. How's it going, John? John is a scoper in Thailand and Hong Kong. You guys should be following. And we are going to go for a walk in the woods on day, I've lost track what day it is. Oh, John's gone. Oh well. And he's back. So this path is about 6,000 steps. It's a pretty short path for me. Hello. Oh, something's in there. Squirrels. Back here we might see an owl. We might see a deer. We could see snakes. There are a lot of squirrels. There's a lot of water and mud right now too. We've had heavy rains this week, last couple of weeks. Hello, Germany. We're not quarantined. Our lockdown says, in fact, it specifically says, please go to the parks and go for a walk so you don't really run into anyone. So hiking is appropriate and allowed and actually encouraged by the state. Not much, John. We're out in a field. We're going to head down to a bog/swamp. And right over light. I just got a note from our school in Hong Kong that they're going back in session May 20th. So schools, there are no bears this part of Maryland, but up to the north there are some bears. So that you guys know, Andrews Air Force Base is about 10 miles that way. That's the President's Air Force Base. Annapolis, Maryland is about 20 miles that way. That's the U.S. Naval Academy. Washington, D.C. is about 20 miles that way. We may see some military jets fly overhead. In fact, I do see Air Force One flying around from time to time. It'd be a good walk. I used to walk. I did a few 20-mile days in Hong Kong. I don't know where Trump is today. Going to Florida, maybe? But there's a lot of military transports that come in and out of Washington, bringing generals back from overseas assignments to the Pentagon to report in, or bringing wounded soldiers back to the Army Hospital in Washington, Walter Reed facility, Bethesda. During the Gulf War, there was a twice-weekly ambulance flight that would come into Andrews Air Force Base, and it'd be met with an ambulance bus, and then they would be given priority access to head over to Walter Reed. They had like a police escort on the freeway. Yeah, you know, it could snow tonight. They told us it could snow. You're in Maryland. We're in a park known as Jugs Bay / the Paris Glendenning Nature Preserve. I think I'm supposed to go that way. It's whatever. This is a county park. It's not even a state. Sorry. Junk calls. So we're going to walk down here. We're going to go into the woods. Then we're going to go down into a swamp. And then we'll come back up through the woods. And some more open fields as well. So the other type of aircraft down there is Patuxent River, about 20-30 miles. And that is the U.S. Navy's Test Pilot School and Aircraft Evaluation Center. So whenever the Navy buys a new airplane, they send it to Pax River, and then they just sort of fly around here and check things out, see if the plane's working. There are no bears here. The bears are in northern Maryland, about an hour away from here. I'll be all right. I think there are skunks, there are deer, foxes, gophers, not gophers, groundhogs, I meant, hedgehogs. I just sort of discovered groundhogs and hedgehogs are the same thing, or woodchucks and groundhogs are the same thing. This part of the path is pretty open it's actually for cars, but you'll see we're going to get into a walking path. Truth be told, I'm slightly confused where I'm at. Nah, don't need a gun. Just use my guile and wit. Let's go this way. You know, they all kind of interconnect the past. So I've never walked this direction. I always walk the other direction. So seeing the paths backwards is a bit confusing. There's only one other person in this entire park, and he went the other direction through this trail. I'm going this direction because we arrived at the same time. The park just opened, so we're the first two people there. Have I been to California many, many times? If a bear came out, I would make myself as big as possible and then walk backwards slowly, but keeping my eye on the bear, which is what they recommend to do. Try to sort of intimidate the bear by making yourself look big and then back away. Not at a run, but slow. If he charged me, I would get a stick and me and the bear would go to town. I actually got married in Tiburon, California, Mill Valley and Tiburon. Actually, I got married in Mill Valley and my reception was in Tiburon. It's near San Francisco. I was living in Washington, office in London, working in Moscow. The wife was living in New York, office in Hong Kong, working in Beijing. So we decided to get married in California, as it was halfway for just about everybody involved. Blueberry Trail, that's where I wanted to be. Well, I've lived in Hong Kong the last 10 years, and we had an assignment to come back to Washington, D.C. for 2 years. So we moved back to D.C., and now with the coronavirus crisis, we're not really sure what comes next. Now we're on the trail. Squirrel. We have a house in Maryland. We've had a house in Maryland for 15, 20 years. On a horse. I wish I was on a horse. I'm in a boat. Ever live in California? No, I have family, in-laws in California. And I used to have a startup tech company. So I spent quite a bit of time in the North Bay. But never technically lived there. Though I've been there for literally weeks on end at times. No, this is a T-Mobile. But the DC area does generally have pretty good cell phone connection. Not as good as Hong Kong, but there. Haven't been to California. See, last 2 years ago. Was it 2 years? No, it was 3 years ago. God. Oh, wow. So 3 summers ago, we decided that our children didn't really know much about the United States. So we flew to San Francisco and we drove to Washington, D.C. And we went down the Pacific Coast Highway, cut across Grand Canyon, back up through Utah, over to Yellowstone, cut through Nebraska, Montana, made our way back through Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, went up to Niagara Falls, and then worked our way down. It was about 25 days on the road. It was a blast. The kids were fine. Honestly, the kids really entertained each other. I've been through Virginia Beach just for like soccer tournaments and stuff. I've never really spent a lot of time in Virginia Beach. How do you get money to do that? Well, money always comes. This is still a pretty wide path. This still has vehicle access, I think, for the rangers. No, not really. Hello, Livermore. I had a friend who worked at Livermore. I have, how old are they? One's 13, I know that. The other is 11 or 10. They're like 2.5 years apart, so he's 11 now. Yeah. Woodrow Wilson's house from the White House. There's a lot of squirrels here. Woodrow Wilson's house from the White House is literally 3/4 of a mile. It's not very far. It's next to Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos lives next to Woodrow Wilson's house. There's a lot of activity in the woods on my left and right. A lot of squirrels and stuff. I don't hear any owls. I did hear a woodpecker briefly. Some squirrels fighting to my left. There are no deer that I can see. Thank God, no skunks. No, I don't think you can camp here. This is just a hiking place. Wildlife sanctuary. This part of Maryland, southern Maryland, is very rural, very undeveloped. They are very anti-growth. So there are a lot of parks, quite a few parks, that are very, very large. All right, we're going to keep going down to the cliff. That's the Red Oak Trail. Oh, Bigfoot. Oh, there was recently in Washington, D.C., which I mentioned is about a half hour that way, there was recently a bobcat sighting. Yeah, a wildlife camera, one of those motion-sensitive cameras, triggered and captured a bobcat in Washington, D.C. proper, about 2 miles from the White House. So that was kind of cool. I am pretty much certain I saw a bobcat in this area about 20 years ago. My motion detector light triggered one night, and I was staring, looking at this animal that was bigger than any cat I've ever seen. Kind of looked like a fox in its color, but foxes weren't gray. It had a very short tail, and I swear to God, in retrospect, after looking at photos of bobcats, I'm pretty certain I saw a bobcat. Now, I've actually spoke to the natural resources people. Said, I think I saw a bobcat. They said, well, we don't have many sightings of bobcats where you live, but could have been. No, it wasn't a dog. Definitely not a dog. Had those hind legs of a cat. It was really quite interesting. This was the days before the iPhone. Had I had an iPhone, Snap would have had a photo. No, I don't think there are any mountain lions here. Where I live is more of a coastal plains, I guess is the appropriate geographical term. It's generally pretty flat on the water. It is very green. It's been very, very wet the last 2 or 3 weeks, and so the forests are incredibly lush right now. They're vibrant and very lush. Blackbeard? What is it? There aren't wolves, but there are coyotes. In fact, there are coyotes. Coyotes are a rather common sighting in Washington, D.C. Now, they're often mistaken for dogs, but there have been a number of coyote sightings. Lush and vibrant. That's the... or isn't there a word like verdant or something like that? Sort of a... It's all like a... the French for green is vert or something like that, right? But I thought there was a word verdant, V-E-R-D-A-N-T, which I think also means kind of lush and vibrant, but I'm not sure. I haven't done a crossword in a few weeks, so... Excuse me, I got a bad cough there. Do I have a machete? No. I like to see if it's dangerous. Yeah, kind of sometimes. Everything in America is dangerous compared to Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, we had 7.5 million people and 22 murders. So, coming to vert in French, yeah. My French is pretty bad. I actually can read a bit of French, but I can't really speak it. I just was too shy in French class to speak up, so I never really practiced speaking French. Antietam is a bit far. Antietam is like an hour and a half away on the other side of DC, up by Harper's Ferry. DC is a very weird place. You have very, very safe parts and very, very dangerous parts. As long as you know the difference. You're right. Oh, cool, guys. We're already at the swamp. We are already at the bog. So let's go down here. Hopefully today nobody will be on this path, since I was the first person here. There's an MGM at the Harper's Ferry. I didn't know that. Harper's Ferry, maybe, but Harper's Ferry is like the old part of Harper's Ferry is very traditional and like no development. It's like it was at the time of the raid, but maybe outside of that they might have put in a casino. There's an MGM Grand at National Harbor in Washington, D.C. Air Force One is at National Harbor. Yeah, that's what you're thinking at. I didn't bring water because it's not that long of a hike today, and I got to go home and make lunch for the kids. I'm thinking of making them hamburgers or hot dogs for lunch today because I just don't feel like cooking. I've just been through Virginia Beach. I haven't really gone down there much. All right, let's go out here, guys. This is tricky because if I look at my camera, I'm not looking at the path. And if I'm not looking at the path, I'm going to get wet. I don't think there's any gators, but you never know. It is pretty awesome, isn't it? If I fall down, I get wet. I get really wet. My kids are mixed. Yeah, that guy, the scope has been stuck on there for a long time. Is that an osprey? It is a cool little bridge, isn't it? What the heck is that bird? Kids are going to school right now. They're in class right now. The water is really high. I bet this bridge is nuts at night. They're in online class, yeah. Yeah, I Instagrammed a photo from here the other day. Penguin6 is my Instagram. So the Patuxent River is over at those trees over there, and this is what's called an oxbow lake, basically. This is a little bit of a diversion that comes out of the Patuxent and then goes back in down there. The Patuxent over there is actually navigable by like a powerboat. Now, in the War of 1812, the Chesapeake Flotilla, which was an American militia of ships, made their way up the Patuxent, being chased by the British. I could swim, but it's not that deep. They had to beach right over there at Pig's Point, which is, see this bit of land here? That's where the Americans ditched their ships. And then they made their way up into the land, ran up this way, and up there and joined the defenses at Bladensburg. All right, so the American militia was at Bladensburg. The British were right on their trail. So the British feinted this direction, but then I think they went up that side. They hit the Americans, they hit them hard, and the American forces crumbled. The Brits then moved on Washington about 20 miles that way, sacked the city, burned the Capitol, burned the White House, before returning to their ships and sailing back up to Baltimore, where they got their asses kicked. So, anyway, we're off the Patuxent. There are no salmon in this river, I don't think. War of 1812, yeah. That all took place here. There is actually reenactments of the War of 1812. They reenact the British landing down there. So guys, usually really, really fat guys, dress up as redcoats and dress up as American militia, and they fire off loud muskets before the Americans go fleeing. There's a screenshot, isn't it? Isn't that just pretty? Look at that screenshot. Wow. I'll pause for a second. I wonder if I can get the clouds better. Maybe if I can adjust to the cloud color. There we go. I don't know if they said the British are coming. Did I tell you that my ancestor was the guy at the shot heard around the world? So I think I've told some of you this story. My middle name is Parker, and I'm named Parker after my great-great-grandmother. She was a Parker, and the Parker line is a long established line in the United States, dating back almost to the Mayflower. Now, the guy who commanded the colonial militia at Lexington was a guy named Parker, and he was I have this looked up. He was like my 9th cousin 6 times removed. Yeah, or 6th cousin 9 times removed. One of those, all right? So he was in charge of the colonial militia at the shot heard around the world. Then his cousin, who was also my cousin, 9 times 6 times removed, was the first American bayoneted to death during the Revolutionary War. I think it was Elias Parker or something like that. So if you ever look up Parker's Revenge, so it is my hobby to walk. Parker's Revenge is where my cousin got revenge on the British as they were retreating back to Boston. So I have a lot of Parkers who served in the Revolution. My sixth great-great-great-grandfather, so that's great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. Bayonet means stabbed with a knife. My 6th great-great-grandfather was at the surrender of Saratoga, Siege of Bastogne, and Bagnères or whatever. No, it wasn't shot in Baltimore. That was the War of 1812 that was in Baltimore. That was Fort McHenry. So after the British sacked Washington, they moved on Baltimore, and they bombed Baltimore. And a guy named Francis Scott Key went out to negotiate a peace with them. They're like, why should we negotiate? We're winning. So he went to bed with the bombs bursting in the air and the rockets' red glare. But then in the morning, the proof through the night, the flag was still there at Fort McHenry. The Brits did not take the fort. Jamestown was one of the first settlements in the U.S. That's down in Virginia. Now, interestingly, let's go back to the Parker line because this gets really wacky, yeah? So, another branch of the Parker line. Most of the Parkers were up in New England, yeah? The Revolutionary War ones. Some went down south. And one of those guys became a famous Revolutionary War fighter and a famous Indian fighter, all right? He was recruited by a guy named Stephen F. Austin to set up a fort in Texas. So this Parker, he went to Texas and created Fort Parker. In it was a bunch of his relatives, and technically my relatives, and some other settlers. Then one day, the Comanches came, and the Comanches wiped out all the Parkers, save for one, a little girl, a little 6-year-old girl they took as their hostage, and they raised her with the Indians. She eventually went on to marry the chief of the tribe, and she had a son named Quanah. Quanah Parker was half white, half Native American. And when the Americans came to push the Comanches back onto the reservation, Quanah Parker became the chief, the last chief of the Comanches. So, Quanah Parker is another relative of mine. Now, Pocahontas is a different story. But if you guys go onto Google, type Fort Parker Massacre, the Parker Massacre, or Quanah Parker. There's a new book out about Quanah Parker that's actually like a New York Times bestseller. She had a similar story. Yeah. Problem with the Parker line is that there's so many of them. I mean, we've dated them back to England. I've taken the Parker line back to about the 1500s and the War of the Roses and all that. They were on the losing side. And do I know people met? No, she died before World War II, I think. The mother died. She actually starved herself to death. The Americans forced her not to live with the Indians, and she just decided, the hell with this, and she basically starved herself to death. Yeah. So yeah, it's Quanah, Quannah, I think is how you spell it, Quanah Parker. Or just type Fort Parker Massacre. Yeah, it is kind of crazy how we're all related. You know what's even crazier than all this? So, see, here's the other guy in the park. Remember I told you there was one other guy in the park? This is why I went my way and he went his way, so we wouldn't meet. But now I gotta pass him. So, anyway, I grew up in a very small town in Illinois. And bizarrely, the Parker family actually donated the land, go ahead with your question, to found my little town. One of the Parkers, descendant, the son of the guy who went to set up Fort Parker, lived in my hometown. He donated the land to the city to make a city, and that's what it is. I really, I know very little history of California. I know very little history of the Southwest. Not as much as I should. When I traveled across country, I realized how out of touch I really was with the Western United States. I mean, I drove the Beartooth Highway from Yellowstone to Billings, Montana. Guys, go do this. If you get a chance, go drive the Beartooth Highway. It's one of the most beautiful roads in America. It's only open like 3 months a year, and then the snow closes it. But it goes up to like 14,000 feet, and then it curls down the side of a mountain. And I didn't even know it was there, I just found it because I was kind of lost. It was just beautiful. Yellowstone is gorgeous. Every American should go to Yellowstone. The city in Illinois that I grew up in, the land was donated by two men, one of whom was a distant relation of mine. And whom that family line is why I named my son Parker. So my youngest son is named Parker. It's also my middle name, so. My oldest son and I share a birthday. He was born on my 40th birthday. So my youngest son, I decided to share part of my name. My oldest son, his first name dates back to the oldest known relative that we have in Ireland. That's his first name. His second name is my father's name. My second son, as I just explained, his Parker name is my middle name, dating back to that line of the family. And his middle name is Theodore, because there was a priest at Notre Dame who helped my wife study in the United States. His name was Theodore Hesburgh. So his middle name is Theodore. It's kind of fun when the names have history to it. Good remembrance then. Yeah, my birthday is coming up kind of soon. I'm not really sure. What is it, May? Yeah, coming up in a few weeks. Reminds me I got to get something for my son. I have no idea what he wants. Quanah died of heart disease, yeah, but his mother, read about Quanah's mother. She's the one who basically starved herself to death. I can't remember her name, Quanah's mother. I have only boys. My wife wants a daughter, but then she said if we had a daughter, I would spoil her so much that she would get jealous. We looked at adopting a Chinese daughter when we were in Hong Kong, but just didn't have the bandwidth. She's right, I would spoil a daughter. I would spoil a daughter beyond belief. Be like, boys, go clean the toilet. Daughter, come here. So here's that lichen we saw the other day. Look at these things. Aren't these cool? Yeah, the mom died of self-starvation. Yes, she is, Jane. Yeah, she basically self-starved herself to death, which is just wacky. This is the problem, because like I had to do a meeting until 9 o'clock, then I rushed out to do this walk, but I got to get home by 11 o'clock because I got to make lunch for the kids. Yeah, that's kind of a weird way to die, self-starvation. I mean, that's just like, ew. Here's more of that lichen I was showing you guys. Yeah, she was protesting that she was basically captured. Looks like a dog was here. Big dog. A running dog. My wife is home, but she's on a conference call right now for most of the day. The problem is my wife still does a lot of deals in Asia. So a lot of the Asian deal conference calls have to take place Asia's night, our morning. So it's no big deal. I'm just gonna grill some hot dogs and marshmallows for lunch, I think. I'm serious. Hot dogs and marshmallows. We've been making a lot of Danish hot dogs lately. Guys, if you've never had a Danish hot dog, you've got to get over to Copenhagen. Danish hot dogs are really good. You know, it's interesting you ask about Peru. I have never been to Peru, but my father has spent quite a lot of time in Peru and in Chile. Danish hot dogs, they have like fried onions on them. They have some other sauces. They're really quite good. I'd never had marshmallows on a hot dog, but we'll see how they like it. My father was in Machu Picchu, and in Chile, he did an archaeological dig of mummified remains. So, actually Peruvian, yeah, cool. So they actually went into the desert, they dug up some remains, and then they did tests like on them to see why they died. Like, oh, this guy had diabetes. Oh, this guy had this. These are mummies from thousands of years ago. So it's part of a government university archaeological dig. I think he got pickpocketed in Machu Picchu, actually. Fried potatoes and hot dogs for dinner. Interesting mix. I was actually thinking about making French fries. Oh, so here's those prickly pear cactus thingies we saw the other day. I said they were cactuses because they kind of look like cactuses. My kids called them cactuses. They're like, Dad, there's cactuses here. Why are there cactuses here? Some of you said, no, those are prickly pears. I think they're cactuses. They look like a cactus. This is actually kind of a short path. I think it's only about 6,000 steps, which is about the same as one loop of the peak. You guys remember I used to walk the peak circle in Hong Kong. That was 6,000 steps. I made it about 8 or 9 by walking down to my house. But the original loop, it's only about 6. There's something over there. Woodpecker? There's something knocking on a tree over there. Yeah, I miss those houses. I was thinking about that house the other day, and the guy who drives the golf cart. You know, I could actually become a member of the Sons or the Daughters of the American Revolution or whatever. I never filled out the form. There's another one called the Society of Cincinnati. I'm not sure if I could be a member of that. Those are descendants of colonial officers. But I think because my relatives were in the militias and not the Continental Army per se, then Susie Wong, that's an old movie, yeah. So schools in Hong Kong open in another 2.5 weeks. They've been closed since January, but Hong Kong has basically beaten the virus. They've had no cases in like 18 days, no local cases in 18 days. And they have a incredibly intense testing regime and quarantine system. You basically do not get into Hong Kong until you take a test and turn up negative. And then they put you in quarantine for 14 days. Oh, another person. Hello. No, not at the level they have there. But of course, Hong Kong is basically essentially an island. You know, there's only X number of ways to get into Hong Kong, and you can seal it off. In Hong Kong, I would walk 10 to 14 miles a day. Here in the United States, I'm lucky if I can get 4 miles a day in. Oh yeah, love Totoro. Our friends have a house in Japan that we go to in the summer, and it's like straight out of the movie. It's a quiet little place, surrounded by a lot of rice paddies. At nighttime, the fireflies come out of the rice paddies like fireworks. Hello. Oops. That's a little bit of an uphill. I was actually going to make, so I've been watching on YouTube, there's a woman known as Kimono Mom. Kimono Mom is this Japanese woman with a 1-year-old baby who cooks all these traditional Japanese dishes in her kitchen while wearing a kimono. Kimono Mom. So Kimono Mom is teaching you how to cook Japanese food. So I was actually, yesterday was supposed to be Japanese fried chicken, karage, which is really, really good. I don't think I'm going to go to Venezuela anytime soon. It seems a bit crazy down there. There could be a Totoro here. There's a little Totoro, and a really big Totoro. No Portuguese, sorry. Beaver Rock. Bye. See you later, Zen. Sleep. Still early out there. Oh, this is interesting. This tree wasn't here the other day. This tree must have just fallen. Yeah, Kimono Mom. It's on YouTube, just Kimono Mom or Kimono Mom's Kitchen. I think it's 2 words, Kimono Mom. K-I-M-O-N-O. Kimono? Kimono. She's very popular. She's like, and she started her YouTube channel like, I don't know, a few weeks ago. And now she's got like 100,000 subscribers, 90,000 or something like that. Kimono mom. How do you spell kimono? K-I-M-O-N-O, right? Kimono. Something up there. Hong Kong is statist. Technically, most Americans think it's the freest economy in the world because it has very low taxes. But it's kind of everything is, you have to be connected to get stuff done. Kimono mom, yes, she is pretty. But karagi, oh, if you've never had karagi, which is Japanese fried chicken, ooh, it is so good. So her latest recipe is karagi. So I'm really tempted to make karagi today for the boys. I don't know if I have any chicken defrosted. I have some chicken thigh defrosted. If I have any other chicken defrosted. I think the wife wanted to make chicken wings. Teriyaki. You know, I have all these authentic teriyaki sauces we brought from Japan and Hong Kong. And then the other day I was pressed, I didn't have any, and they had this Panda Gourmet teriyaki sauce, you know, the thick, goopy brown one. And I was like, fine, so I just bought that at the store. I put it on the chicken for the kids the other day. They're just like, this is great. I'm like, guys, you know, that's like American Chinese. That's not like real Japanese or even real Asian food. It's, I don't care, it's yummy. I'm like, all right, fine. So you guys, if you look at my Instagram, you saw what I made for lunch yesterday, which was this kind of chicken and rice concoction. My wife gave me very specific instructions on how to cook it, and I, of course, completely ignored her instructions. Yeah. And then she ate it. She's like, oh, it's so good. You cooked it so well. You must have followed my instructions exactly. And in the interest of marital bliss, I just said, yes, dear. Yes, I did. Reality was, no, of course I didn't follow your instructions. I knew how to make it. I knew how to make it better than you. So I did it my way. You know, when I was in Russia, I tried borscht for the first time, and I never thought I'd like it. It was actually not bad. I didn't really hate it like I thought I would. And what's the paninis or whatever, the little dumplings, the Russian ones? They're good. We have some friends who are Russian, and they brought us a bunch of Russian food, like Russian soda, Russian butter, some other stuff. My wife, it was interesting, my wife drank this Russian Coca-Cola or whatever it's called, this Russian soda. And then she was like, wow, this tastes just like the soda that I had as a little girl in China. A bento box is a lunch box, basically. A bento box has like 4 or 5 little compartments. So your sushi doesn't touch your teriyaki chicken, and your whatever, your rice stays clean. So what happens is you make a little bento box and send it with your husband to work, or your kids, or you can even serve a bento box. It's just like a bunch of little appetizers. Think of it as a lunchbox, basically. I haven't actually watched that one, though. I saw that she had that video the other day. Pine Barrens, oh. You can get bento boxes at most Japanese restaurants. It's sort of an easy way for them to serve you a mixed meal. Yeah. Of course, most bento boxes in America are styrofoam. The real authentic one is wood. I think the one thing you need to get if you want to cook Japanese food is mirin. Mirin is this like sweet seasoning oil type stuff. You can get it like a giant. Yeah. Mirin goes well with everything. I put mirin in everything now. Scrambled eggs with mirin even. M-I-R-I-N, mirin. Mirin, M-I-R-I-N. R-I-N, mirin. It's this Japanese. It's kind of like an oil sauce sort of thing, flavoring. Bento box has its own emoji. Yeah, I guess it does. It's a pretty common thing. Can't see a squirrel. There are some squirrels. There's a few gray squirrels. There's occasionally a black squirrel. Black squirrels are offsprings of albinos, and gray squirrels, they usually come out as a black squirrel. And there are a few of them around. Picnic table. Hey, boo-boo, let's get a picnic basket. Picnic basket. I wish Totoro. I'm not really a fan of curry powder, so I really don't have an opinion, I'm sorry to say. I did just buy the other day some 5 spices powder, which is a traditional Chinese powder for making spicy. I like anise a lot. Vietnamese use a lot of anise while making Vietnamese soup. That's one of those little smells. I use anise when making Christmas cookies too. A lot of Chinese dishes have anise. Singaporean noodles. Interesting. Ugh. This path is really muddy. People have been trying to make a bridge here for the last few days. Hang on a second. Oh, that's a good log here. I don't know why it's put over this way. This one. Hang on a second. There we go. This loop isn't really 4 miles, I don't think. Yeah, we're probably going to get rain and snow. They warned of snow as early as tonight. I think parts of the Northeast are getting snow. I don't think it's going to get that cold here. Frostburg is, well, it's about a half hour to Washington, D.C. from here. And from D.C. to Frostburg is about 2 hours. Snow in Quebec. Wow. Oh, there's an abandoned tractor up here. Yeah, it is a nice hike back here. Check out this tractor. I'm almost done. I don't know if it's a tractor or a car or like something, but it's got these old metal wheels. Yeah? I think it might be like a harvester or something, some sort of like chariot or plow kind of thing. It is definitely old. And we're back to the barn. If you guys have been with me since the beginning, this is where we started. We have done the loop. Short, quick, but still some exercise. Yeah, do those old antiquated farm photos that you see every now and then. I grew up, most of my friends had barns. We used to play in barns and throw hay at each other and get slivers. No, I don't have a barn at my country house. Though if you look, I have the bay at my country house. The water. It might be haunted. All right, guys. So that ends the hike. Thanks a lot. That was a fun hike. I gotta go home and cook the marshmallows and hot dogs for lunch. So appreciate you guys watching. Check me out on Instagram, Penguin6, YouTube, Penguin6, and it is not a bank holiday here though. VE Day. Happy VE Day to everyone. And unfortunately, that's about as zoomed in as I can get it. But that is part of a submarine. That is the conning tower in the bow of a brand new submarine being towed from Newport News up to Groton, Connecticut. So I just came out of the house and saw that making its way past the house. That's the front half of a new sub. I don't know what class, or maybe it's an old Los Angeles boat, Los Angeles class. I'm not sure what it is, but I did a marine AIS tracker, and that tugboat is the Prince McAllister, and it's on a course to Groton, Connecticut. So we were able to trace its AIS. And if you look at my Instagram, Penguin6, I did a zoom of that with a bigger camera, and it is a submarine. That is the front half of a submarine. So it is sailing past my house right now. I was just about to go to lunch. So kind of a random thing. Yeah, check out my Instagram, Penguin6, and you'll get a much better picture. I'm zoomed in 100% right now. I'm sorry, that's all this camera will do. But I took a picture with another lens, and it was much closer. That's on my Instagram, Penguin6. So this is pretty much all I can give you right now. No, we're just doing carry-out, and that's so much fun. Yeah, you can trace pretty much anything online right now. So if you happen to have an AIS tracker like Marine Tracker or Boat Watch or any of those other ship AIS systems, call up the Chesapeake Bay right now, and you'll see the Prince McAllister. It's a tug, and it's pulling this cargo. It left Newport News, I think. It does track. It doesn't track all military vessels. Some though. It's not a clear picture, no, because that's zoomed up like 10 times and then photographed through a binoculars. Yeah, it's as clear as I could make it. I don't have my big zoom lens. It is moving very slow. It's been out there for about 15, 20 minutes. I don't have a good telescope. Yeah, I wish I had a telescope. In other news, it's raining over there. Yeah, so there's a rain cloud over there. And then the submarine is back over here. So the sub, it's about as clear as I can get it on this. Anyway, it's not shelling us. It's not getting chased by a destroyer or getting depth charges or anything like that. Yeah, you can see the rain. Zoom out again. Yeah, so the rain's over there. Yeah, that's the rain. Newport News, it is a U.S. sub. Newport News is down to our right, the Norfolk Naval Base. But this will be towed up to Groton, which is that electronic boat works. The rain is falling on the eastern shore. That's the other side of Annapolis. So this will be passing Annapolis in about an hour, probably passing Baltimore in about 2 hours, if you happen to be out on the bay. Annapolis is up that way, about 20 miles. No, we're in Maryland. Ocean Beach is way over there, yeah. Ocean City. Anyway, I just thought I'd share this random thing. Submarine in the backyard. All right, guys, I got to go pick up lunch for the kids. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.